I think the question everybody has to ask themselves when they're talking about their football team is, do you want a team that is great now or a team that is built for the future? I personally am this weird guy who kind of likes to be tortured in the meantime, but always have an eye toward the future. So if my team is great now, they better be set up well for the future because I desperately, desperately want that future to look bright. And in a recent ranking done by SB Nation on which AFC teams are best set up for the future, both 2024 and 2025. Now, this isn't like 10 years down the line. It's the next 2 years. The Chargers came in at a really, really good rank, and I'm going to tell you why it's even better news when we're talking about the AFC West, because part of it has to deal with where the other teams ranked as well. So here's my question. Where do you think the Chargers should stack up in a 16-team AFC? In a 16-team AFC, where do you think they should be? And in case you're wondering, here are the categories. Head coach / stability. That probably wasn't great before, but hey, recent history. Non-QB roster, QB / passing success, defensive passing, division hierarchy situation, and dealer's choice. So these are kind of the categories. I don't know if I would have chosen the categories that way. I probably would have said run offense, run defense, pass defense, head coach, quarterback. Like, I don't know. That's kind of where I would have gone. But as you might expect, unfortunately, the number one team on this list is going to be the Chiefs. That's what's going to happen when you have a quarterback and head coach that have won 3 Super Bowls together, and it doesn't seem to be ending in the next couple years. So that's obviously what it's going to be. The number 2 team is the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, it's the brother of your coach. And he has proven to be a phenomenal head coach. Number 3 is the Buffalo Bills, a proven quarterback and a coach. Again, it's the quarterback-coach combo. Do you see anything in common here? It's quarterback-coach combos. Then you have the Texans, new quarterback and coach. I thought this was interesting that they were better than the Bengals, and it's because of the Bengals' nasty pass defense that they were ranked up that the Texans got the nod. All right, and then you have the Cleveland Browns coming in right before, which by the way, I don't know if I agree with the Cleveland Browns, but it's not bad. Right before you get the Chargers. So why is this great news for the division? We're going to get there. But before we get there, here's how it got. Overall ranking in the NFL tied for 13th. So 7 in the AFC, but they probably would have been 6th in the NFC. Their best rank is their quarterback, who was 4th in the AFC, or in the NFL. You have the 4th best quarterback position for future. I agree with that. All right. And then your worst ranking was what have you done for me lately, the recent, and the pass defense, which I thought was really, really interesting because I think the pass defense is set to be pretty good, especially with the great edge rushing. All right, let's see what I had to say. In a previous stint as NFL head coach, Harbaugh took a team that was 6-10 to 13-3 in his first season. These Chargers are more talented than those 49ers, but Harbaugh didn't have to worry about Patrick Mahomes back then. Still, look at the talent. By the way, can I just pause for a second? Do you get sick of that? Do you get sick of the whole Patrick Mahomes thing? All right, so this is where I get to tell you, and this is going to make sense. This is where I get to tell you where this channel started. We are Lions fans. We're not going to hide that. We have a Sports Talk Detroit channel. We have a Sports Talk Extra channel. And then when that man right there got the job with the Chargers, we're like, we need to start a Chargers channel. And that's what we did. And I am starting to see in all the articles about the Chargers, it talks about the Patrick Mahomes problem. We understand this as Lions fans. We have been a franchise that has not been able to make it over the hump, all right? And it's always been a Brett Favre problem or an Aaron Rodgers problem. For all of eternity, it feels like. For the entirety of my football watching life, since 1991, that has been the issue. Do you get sick of hearing about how Patrick Mahomes is so good and how you're never going to get past him? It was the same thing with the Lions. We had Stafford, right? You have Herbert, just a rocket right arm, like immense talent. So Stafford. And all we could hear about was how Aaron Rodgers was better. That's at my sidebar. It's got to get annoying. All right, but let's look at the rest of these teams, and this is why it's good news for the AFC West. You got the Jags tied with you. Then you have the Dolphins. Kind of good to see you ahead of two playoff caliber teams last year. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers, another playoff caliber team, right? Then you have the Jets, which is interesting. All right, that's the stability is what killed them. Then you have the Colts, who were 10-7 last year. You're ahead of them. The Titans. And then it's not until 14 that you have the next AFC West team. And then you have the Raiders after that. So the reason this is good news is, yes, you're going to have to deal with Patrick Mahomes. I get that. It's a 17-game season. You play the Chiefs twice. All right? It's not going to be the thing that doesn't allow you to be successful. It just isn't. And I know the rivalry with, of course, the Broncos and the Raiders, but the Raiders and the frustrations of going into Vegas. I understand all that, but your team is more set up for success. The Raiders come in number 32 at quarterback. It's really that simple. You have a better, more proven coach as well. Like, I'm just going to be very, very simple on that. Antonio Pierce did a great job and forced them into hiring him, and that might end up being the best news that Chargers fans could hope for. Possibly. Got the whole lawsuit with the ex-wife. You got the whole thing going on here. He could be a phenomenal coach. He could be. Or he could be an absolute train wreck when he's forced to watch a team, a franchise for a long duration. That is a good thing that you guys are getting out of this. And then again, realizing how much better of a quarterback situation you are than the Broncos and the Raiders. That is massive. That is absolutely massive. So as we close this, I want to do this with something that Chris did a little while ago. And I want to talk about that Mount Rushmore of Chargers because I want to be able to talk about it. I want to be able to talk about what my Mount Rushmore for the Chargers is. And it has to start with none other than these two names. And that is LaDainian Tomlinson, because watching him play in the early 2000s, coming out of TCU, that record-breaking season, like, you realize, like, depending on how long this guy can play, this is one of the best running backs I've ever seen. Like, LaDainian Tomlinson might make my Mount Rushmore of running backs, not just Chargers, but running backs in general. Another guy who would make my Mount Rushmore, not just on the Chargers, but also as best to ever do it at his position, Junior Seau, right? I'm not retiring. I'm graduating, right? We all remember that, and that it was a very sad ending for him in his life. But at the same time, he was an amazing football player, and he was a guy who almost single-handedly made me a Chargers fan. And then when you go after that, you have to decide. So do I put people in there that I only saw or others? So if it's people only I saw, it would be Antonio Gates and then maybe Phillip Rivers, right? But if it's people that are in the past that are really good, it might be Kellen Winslow and Dan Fouts. Like, we're talking about people that play the same position here. Dan Fouts did ridiculous things in an era that it shouldn't necessarily be done. All right. You got to put in an idea for Lance Allworth too. You have Keenan Allen, and that's just kind of like 8 names. Let me know who you think. Are you more tending to go to the guys of the last like 20, 30, 40 years, or are you willing to go further back? So that's kind of my Mount Rushmore. Just wanted to have some fun with it. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next one.